Hello, it's Julie from Spellbound, and today I'm going to show you how to make these lovely crystal bracelets. We're going to use an extra strong thread called Dura thread, which is ideal for threading crystal beads. And onto each bracelet I've added a little pendant detail, so when you wear them you've got that extra little bit of sparkle that comes from your little pendant. Now I think they look fantastic all as separate bracelets, but equally you could join them onto a multi-row fastener. I've made the colours of the rainbow, but you could mix the colours along the length, or you could do as I'm going to do today and make clear ones, because after all the colours of the rainbow come together to make white. These are the materials I'm going to need to make a bracelet. I've chosen a bolt ring clasp. Now it's a nice little neat fastener and it's not very heavy, which is ideal for this style of single row bracelet. It's got a tag for the other side, so it all comes as one. I've got a pair of calotte crimps. Now we've shown you how to use these before, but I'll show you again today. I've got a jump ring. This is just 4mm in diameter. I have a head pin. That's to make the little dangle. And I've got some crystal beads. Now here I've got 45 4mm crystal bicones. Now I've chosen them in a crystal AB, so I've got lots of sparkle. And I actually need 45 beads in total for my size of bracelet. You might need a few more or a few less. I've got 44 for the length itself, and I'm going to put aside one bead for my dangle. If I put it aside now, I won't thread it on by accident. Now when you're calculating your length, you ought to take into account that the clasp, that's from the start of the first calotte to the end of the second one, will add about 2 centimetres to the overall length, so you can take that into account and perhaps use a couple less crystal than you thought. Now I've prepared my needle with some Dura thread. I've chosen the white one. There's white and black available, but I've chosen the white because I'm using a clear bead, and I've put 1 metre of thread onto my size 10 needle and brought the two ends together. And this is where I need to add my anchor to start off the process. Now here I've got 2 little seed beads that I will use for the anchor inside my calotte crimp. Now I'm using some size 10, but 11s will do, or some delicas. You just need a single small seed bead for each end. It doesn't matter what colour, because the calottes will close together and you won't see the seed bead when your project is finished. So I'm going to pop the seed bead on and bring it down close to the cut ends of the thread. So I'm nearly at the end, but not quite. I'm now going to take out one of the threads so that now the bead is just on one side of the thread and the other side is blank. I'm going to bring the 2 cut ends together, making sure that the seed bead is the other side. So there's our 2 cut ends, and I'm going to tie an overhand knot. That means that that seed bead can't now escape. I'm going to put another knot on top of that one. There we go, and now we've got a double knot. Now this is quite silky thread, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get one knot exactly on top of the other because it wants to slide along. If you use your needle to direct the knot, you'll be able to get a double knot quite easily. Right, bring the seed bead down. You can see now the combination of the knot and the seed bead is quite a substantial anchor. Right, on with the first calotte crimp. So it's through the hole in the calotte crimp from the inside of the cups to the outside. And just to check it's right, when I close the two cups together, it's going to conceal that seed bead, so that will give me a nice end. And now it's on with the crystal. It's just one after the other. Now I've done my bracelets all in one colour, but you might like to mix them, perhaps do shades of. A nice thing to note is that although you can buy these crystal beads separately, you can also buy them in hundreds, which is obviously a little less expensive per bead. And from 100, you should be able to get 2 bracelets and have a couple of beads over for earrings. So perhaps you can make one for a gift for a friend, keep a bracelet for yourself, and also you can make a pair of earrings. Now I'm using Dura thread today, but equally there are other threads that are extra strong and resist the sometimes abrasive nature of crystal beads. Spellbound also sells Fireline, which is the thread of choice for a lot of people who do weaving with crystal beads, because it comes in lots of different weights. So you can have a really thin one or a thicker one. And that also comes in white, in black, and what they term smoke, which is a sort of neutral grey colour. Right, so we've got all our crystal beads on. Now at this stage I suggest you check the length, make sure you've done the right number for your wrist. And now we're going to add the calotte crimp. Now this time we're going from the outside of the cups to the inside. Bring it down, you can see that that's the bead effect sitting against the last crystal. Now we're going to have to add our second anchor. So I've got a second seed bead and I'm going to thread that onto my needle. Now I need to do the same as before. I need to take one of the sides of the thread out of that seed bead. So I'm going to cut the needle off and withdraw one of the sides of the thread from the seed bead. Let the seed bead fall into the cup. And now I just have to tie these two ends together. This time I'm going to do a reef knot. So I'm going to cross the two threads over and bring them together like that. So it's an overhand knot but crossways, so that I can draw it down onto that bead. Now that's the first half of a reef knot. Before I make the second half, I just want to make sure that the beads are close together, but it's not tight, because if I make it too tight, it won't flow as a bracelet, it will be a bit angular. So it was left over right, so now it's right over left. And that completes the reef knot, and I'm going to do the same again. Left over right. Right over left. There we are. I've got that nice and firm, and this is still flexible. That's lovely. Now because this is a silky thread, I want to make sure everything is firm and it's not going to slip. So I'm going to paint that knot there with a nice generous dab of nail polish. I'm also painting the bead, so the bead will stick to the thread and will also stick to the inside of the calotte. Doesn't matter how messy it is, it doesn't matter what colour your nail varnish is. Just make sure it's nice and generous. Everything will be hidden inside the calotte. Right, now while the nail varnish or the nail polish is still wet, use the tail ends of the thread to help you to position the seed bead in the middle of the cups and then close it down. There we go. That's nice and neat. We'll trim these when we're sure that the nail polish has set. Same at this side. To position the bead, close the calotte. Again, we'll leave those tails just for the moment so the nail polish can set. I'll put that aside, and while that's drying we can do our little pendant piece. Now to make the pendant, I've got a head pin and my extra crystal, and I've got a little jump ring to make the connection between the clasp and the calotte to give it some extra dangle. Now I'm going to make a wrapped loop on this pin. Instead of just trimming and making a simple loop, I'm going to wrap the pin back on itself to give you this nice attractive spiral detail, but in addition you also get a much more secure loop. So I need my round nose pliers. I need my round nose pliers about there, which is about 4mm from the end of the tines, and I need it about 4mm up from the crystal bead. I'm going to keep my pliers still and I'm going to bend the end of the pin. I'm going to bend it all the way around, just the one side of the pliers, all the way around, like that, until it touches against the other side of the pliers. Let's have a little look what we've got. We've got what looks like a capital P shape, so the pin comes through the bead, around and across. Now if I leave it as a P shape, the dangle won't hang straight, so I just need to straighten it up. So I put my pliers on the upright bit of the loop right at the base and just tip back, and you can see now the loop has a little bend in it, just there, a little shoulder, and it sits upright above the little bead. Now we're going to do the winding. Push your round nose pliers right back inside the loop as far as it will go to support it, and then start to wind with the rest of the pin from just below the loop towards the crystal. Take your time. If you take your time, you'll make it neat. Keep on going until you're at the bead itself. Now we just need to remove this extra wire. I'm using side cutters, so I need to make sure that the flat side, not the indented side, is against where I want to cut, because that's the way I get in as close as possible, and trim that off. Now you can see probably that's left a tiny burr. It's just sticking out slightly, so I'm going to use my flat pliers just to push it in. Sometimes you get a burr, sometimes you don't. There we go, there's our pendant. Now we're almost ready to assemble the bracelet. I've got the jump ring and clasp there, and I'm going to make sure that the dangle attaches to the clasp end of the mechanism, not to the tag end, because when you're trying to fasten it, it gets in the way of you aiming for the tag if you've got the dangle there as well. So make sure it's this end of the clasp, not that end. Right, bring in our beads. Let's just trim off these thread ends. That's one. Having the tails on also helps you to get in nice and close. That's two. And now we're ready for final assembly. So let's put the tag end on first. So it's the tag goes onto the hook of the calotte. Use your pliers to roll the tag loop shut, the calotte loop shut, and just give it a little squeeze along the length like that, because that will help it to resist any pull. Let's have a look at this end. This end we've got to join the loop of the clasp to the jump ring and to this, and then onto the calotte. So let's put the jump ring on first. So we've got opening the jump ring with 2 pairs of pliers, pick up your dangle onto the clasp, close that. I did notice that the clasp ring was slightly open, so I'm just going to, see it's slightly to one side. Oh, that's better, that's neater. And now let's get our hook onto the jump ring. I prefer to shut with round nose pliers, so just close that up, give it that little squeeze, and there we have our crystal bracelet. Quick to make, lovely to wear. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.